Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going deep, diving deep, I should say, into some classic science fiction from the 50s and 60s.
Nice.
We've got Help. I am Dr. Morris Goldpepper.
Yeah.
The Wall Around the World, Satan's Shrine, the Transmogrification of Wamba's Revenge,
Wow.
and Skulking Permit.
I'm really curious to see
Lots to unpack there.
how these vintage, stories hold up in our modern world.
Yeah, what intrigues me the most about this collection is how they grapple with themes that are even more relevant now than when they were written.
Oh, interesting.
Societal control, runaway technology, and what it means to be human amidst all that.
It's like they were, tapping into something fundamental about the human experience.
Right.
That transcends time and technology.
Yeah.
But before we get too philosophical,
Okay.
let's jump into our first theme.
Okay.
Societal control and individuality.
I like it.
And we'll start with The Wall Around the World.
Okay.
A story that literally puts a barrier between humanity and its potential. This concept of the wall is so fascinating because it operates on multiple levels. It's a physical barrier,
Right.
but it also represents the limitations that society places on knowledge and exploration.
I see.
It's about the fear of the unknown and how those in power try to control what people know and experience.
Oh, so like limiting information.
Exactly.
And then you have Porgy, our
Right.
protagonist. He's like this embodiment of youthful curiosity and rebellion.
I like Porky.
He's not buying the whole "we're not ready for this knowledge" argument.
Yeah.
He wants to see what's on the other side.
Yeah.
Consequences be damned.
He's a rebel.
Yeah.
I like it.
I almost see him as a metaphor for that drive we all have
Mm.
to push boundaries, to question the status quo,
Right.
even if it means going against the grain.
Absolutely. And I think what makes Porgy's story so compelling is how he uses both his innate abilities, this mind talk that the adults are so afraid of, and his own ingenuity, crafting a makeshift glider to defy the wall.
Oh, wow.
It's almost like the author is saying that the desire for knowledge and freedom is so strong, it'll find a way even when those in power try to suppress it.
It really makes you wonder,
Yeah.
if you apply that to our modern world,
Yeah.
what walls do we face today?
That's a great question.
Are they physical or more about the control of information and technology?
I think it's something that each listener can reflect on individually because those walls can be different for everyone,
Oh.
shaped by their own experiences and perspectives.
Okay.
But what the story highlights is that urge to break free,
Yeah.
to see beyond the limitations that are imposed on us,
Right.
whether by those in power or by our own fear of the unknown.
Okay, shifting gears now to Skulking Permit,
Okay.
which takes a totally different but equally thought-provoking
Okay.
approach to this idea of societal control.
Interesting.
It's almost like a satirical take
Okay.
on earthly customs, set against a backdrop
Huh.
of a peaceful, almost utopian society
Um.
on New Delaware.
What strikes me about Skulking Permit is how it highlights the absurdity of blindly following rules without understanding their purpose. Here you have a society that's essentially forgotten what crime even means,
Oh, wow.
forced to relearn it because Earth decides it's not earthly enough.
And then you have poor Tom Fisher thrust into the role of the designated criminal.
Right.
He's stumbling through his attempts to steal, clearly uncomfortable with the whole concept.
Yeah.
It's played for laughs,
Yeah.
but there's a deeper layer of satire there, commentary on conformity and the pressure to adhere to norms, even when they're completely nonsensical.
It's like the author is holding up a mirror to our own tendency to follow rules and traditions without questioning their relevance or validity.
That's a good point.
Makes you wonder how much of what we consider normal is simply based on arbitrary customs or the whims of those in power.
Yeah, and the irony is that Tom, the appointed criminal, ends up being the most moral character in the story.
Right.
He refuses to commit murder, even when pressured by the mayor and the inspector from Earth.
Interesting.
It's almost like his inherent goodness shines through despite the absurdity of the situation.
It raises an interesting point about individual conscience versus societal expectations.
Yeah.
Tom's internal compass guides him, even when external forces are pushing him towards actions that conflict with his own sense of right and wrong.
Makes you wonder,
Yeah.
is true morality about blindly following rules? Or is it about making choices that align with your own values, even when they go against the grain?
It ties into this broader question of how we navigate a world where we're constantly bombarded with information, rules, and expectations.
Yeah, a lot.
How do we filter out the noise and stay true to ourselves?
Okay, let's shift gears again and dive into our next theme.
Okay.
Technological advancements and their consequences.
Sounds good.
I think help. I Am Dr. Morris Goldpepper is a great place to start. It's got this quirky charm, but it also explores some pretty dark themes about exploitation and the unintended consequences of progress.
What I find fascinating about this story is how it juxtaposes the excitement of space travel and advanced technology with the ethical dilemmas that can arise when those advancements fall into the wrong hands.
Right.
Here you have Dr. Goldpepper, a brilliant but slightly eccentric dentist who becomes a victim of his own talents.
He gets kidnapped by these toothless aliens who have mastered matter porting, essentially teleportation.
It's quite a predicament.
Right, but they use it for their own selfish purposes.
Right.
They need dentures, and they've decided Dr. Goldpepper is the one to make them, whether he likes it or not.
It raises all sorts of questions about the ethics of technology and how something seemingly beneficial, like teleportation, can be used for exploitation.
Wow.
It's a reminder that progress isn't always a straight line towards utopia. Sometimes it comes with unintended consequences and moral gray areas.
And Dr. Goldpepper, despite being held captive, doesn't just give in. He finds a way to resist using his dental skills to send coded messages back to Earth.
That's clever.
It's like a testament to human ingenuity, even in the face of overwhelming technological superiority.
It's a reminder that even seemingly mundane skills can become tools of empowerment and resistance.
Interesting.
And it speaks to that core human drive to fight for freedom and autonomy, even when the odds are stacked against you.
Okay, now let's jump into Satan's Shrine, which takes us on a much darker journey into the potential consequences of unchecked technological power. It's a chilling vision of a dystopian future where one man holds the world hostage with nuclear weapons.
This story, written during the height of the Cold War, reflects the very real anxieties people felt about the threat of nuclear annihilation.
It's scary stuff.
It really is.
For sure.
And it explores what happens when technology, specifically weapons of mass destruction, falls into the hands of someone driven by power and paranoia.
Right, and we see this play out through the eyes of those trying to infiltrate Satan's Shrine, this technologically advanced fortress that has become both a symbol of power and a constant threat to humanity's survival. Each expedition faces deadly challenges, and it raises questions about the cost of fighting for freedom when the stakes are so high.
What's particularly interesting is the cyclical nature of the conflict in this story. Each attempt to overthrow Satan seems to fail. Often falling prey to the same traps and internal divisions.
So they never really get anywhere.
It's almost like the author is saying that violence begets violence, and that even if you defeat one tyrant, another might rise to take their place.
And the ending really drives that point home. Without giving too much away. It leaves you questioning whether anything truly changed, and whether humanity is doomed to repeat its mistakes, even in the face of unimaginable consequences.
It's pretty bleak, but it's also a powerful reminder of the need for alternative solutions to conflict. Especially in a world armed with such destructive power.
I think the key takeaway here is that technology itself isn't inherently good or evil. It's how we choose to use it that matters.
Exactly.
And that applies not just to weapons of mass destruction, but to any form of technological advancement.
Exactly.
We have a responsibility to consider the potential consequences, both positive and negative.
For sure.
And to guide that progress in a way that benefits humanity as a whole. Not just those in power.
Absolutely.
It's a heavy topic.
It is.
But definitely one worth discussing. We've explored the potential for both liberation and control when it comes to technology. We've seen how individual choices and societal pressures can shape the course of progress. And we've glimpsed the darker side of innovation, the potential for misuse and unintended consequences.
Before we move on to the final theme in our deep dive, take a moment to consider these ideas. What resonates most with you about the interplay of technology and power in these stories? How do they connect to your own experiences and anxieties about the world we live in today?
We'll be back soon to delve into our final theme, human nature and its enduring qualities, where we'll explore the complexities of ambition, revenge, and the search for knowledge in two fascinating stories.
Great.
Until then, ponder these questions and see what insights you uncover.
Sounds good. Welcome back to our deep dive into classic science fiction. I trust you've had a moment to reflect on that complex relationship between technology and society.
Definitely. It's amazing how these stories written decades ago anticipate so many of our modern anxieties about AI and the potential misuse of technology.
Yes, and I think Satan's Shrine offers a particularly chilling example of what can happen when power and technology become concentrated in the wrong hands.
Right.
It's a reminder that technological progress, while often seen as a force for good, can also be used for oppression and control.
Right, and it's not just about governments or dictators. Corporations, even individuals, can wield technology in ways that threaten our freedoms and privacy.
Right.
Think about the debates we're having today about data collection, surveillance, and the ethical implications of AI.
It's true.
It's like those themes from Satan's Shrine are playing out in real time.
Absolutely, and it highlights the importance of critical thinking and active citizenship. We can't just blindly accept technological advancements without considering their potential consequences and advocating for safeguards to protect our individual rights and autonomy.
Okay, shifting gears a bit, I'm really curious to dig into the transmogrification of Wamba's revenge.
Okay.
It's such a unique story, blending this almost Shakespearean tale of revenge with a scientific discovery that has the potential to reshape the world, literally.
What fascinates me about Wamba is her complexity as a character.
Yeah.
She's victim of betrayal, but she's also incredibly intelligent and resourceful, using her knowledge of the shrinking moss to manipulate those around her and ultimately gain control.
It's like she embodies both the best and worst aspects of human nature, the desire for justice, but also the capacity for ruthlessness and ambition.
Yeah, and the shrinking moss, this seemingly innocuous scientific discovery, becomes a tool for both personal vengeance and global domination.
It raises questions about the unintended consequences of our actions, especially when you're dealing with powerful technology. Wamba's initial goal is revenge, but her actions end up having far-reaching implications, reshaping the balance of power on a global scale. It's a reminder that even with the best intentions, our choices can have unforeseen and sometimes devastating ripple effects.
Absolutely.
It makes me think about how we approach innovation today. Are we fully considering the potential long-term consequences of the technologies we're developing? Are we doing enough to ensure that progress serves humanity, rather than leading to greater inequality or even destruction?
Those are crucial questions. And I think Wamba's revenge serves as a cautionary tale. It reminds us that progress isn't always linear or predictable, and that we need to be mindful of the ethical implications of our choices, especially when it comes to powerful new technologies.
Okay, let's dive into Sign of the Magus now.
All right.
This story really caught my attention because it reimagines magic as a science. A hidden system with its own rules and principles rooted in mathematics and physics. Like a fusion of fantasy and hard science fiction.
Yes, and I think it speaks to our enduring fascination with the mysteries of the universe. Even in an age of scientific advancement, there's still a part of us that longs for the extraordinary, for something beyond the realm of the ordinary and explainable.
And what's fascinating is how the story presents the protagonist's journey from skepticism to acceptance. He starts out disbelieving in magic, but as he delves deeper into this hidden world, he's forced to confront his own preconceptions and embrace the possibility that there's more to reality than he initially understood.
It's like a metaphor for the scientific process itself, the constant questioning, the willingness to challenge established beliefs, and the gradual unveiling of knowledge through observation and experimentation.
And just like in any scientific field, there are ethical considerations and potential dangers associated with the practice of magic in this story. You have Solomon, the antagonist, who embodies the corrupting influence of power. He seeks to control magic for his own gain, silencing those who oppose him and even resorting to murder.
His actions highlight the importance of checks and balances, even within a seemingly hidden and esoteric field like magic.
It's a reminder that power, regardless of its source, can be misused, and that ethical guidelines are essential to prevent abuse. And it makes you wonder, as we unlock new knowledge and develop increasingly powerful technologies, how do we ensure that they're used responsibly? How do we prevent those with malicious intent from exploiting those advancements for their own gain?
Those are questions we must constantly grapple with as a society.
Yeah.
Sign of the Magus, while set in a world of magic, offers a valuable lesson about the importance of ethical considerations in any field of knowledge or technological advancement.
Absolutely. And it underscores the need for transparency, collaboration, and a shared commitment to using knowledge and power for the benefit of humanity, rather than for individual gain or control.
Now, before we move on to our final story, Skulking Permit, I'd like to take a moment to consider the broader historical context in which these science fiction stories were written. The 1950s and 60s were a time of profound change and uncertainty. The Cold War, the space race, the civil rights movement. All of these events shaped the cultural landscape and influenced the themes explored in science fiction.
It's fascinating to think about how those real-world anxieties and aspirations might have found their way into these stories. The fear of nuclear annihilation, the desire for progress and exploration, the struggle for equality and justice. These are all themes that resonate throughout the stories we've discussed today.
Exactly. Science fiction often acts as a mirror to society, reflecting our hopes and fears about the present and the future. And these stories, written during a time of unprecedented technological and social upheaval, offer a unique glimpse into the anxieties and aspirations of that era.
And it's remarkable how many of those same concerns are still relevant today, albeit in different forms. We're still grappling with the ethical implications of technological advancements, the balance of power between individuals and institutions, and the search for meaning and purpose in a rapidly changing world.
Indeed. As we delve into our final story, Skulking Permit, let's keep in mind this historical context and consider how it might have informed the author's satirical take on societal norms and the absurdity of blindly following rules.
Skulking Permit definitely stands out from the other stories we've discussed. It's a hilarious satire that pokes fun at bureaucracy, conformity, and the very idea of crime in a society that's essentially forgotten what it means to be earthly.
The story takes place on New Delaware, a peaceful colony that's been isolated from Earth for over 2 centuries.
Oh, wow.
They've developed their own way of life, one based on cooperation and sharing, where crime is virtually non-existent.
But then Earth reestablishes contact. And insists they readopt earthly customs, including crime.
I know.
It's like a bureaucratic mandate for societal dysfunction.
It's so strange.
The absurdity of the situation is amplified by the choice of Tom Fisher as the designated criminal. He's a reluctant participant in this charade, stumbling through his attempts to steal. And generally uncomfortable with the whole idea of breaking the law. Everyone's watching him, eager to see how this stealing thing is done. But he's terrible at it. He's more concerned with not hurting anyone's feelings than actually acquiring loot.
The humor lies in the contrast between Tom's inherent goodness and the absurdity of the task he's been assigned. It's a satirical commentary on the arbitrary nature of rules and the disconnect between those who make the rules and those who are forced to follow them.
It gets even more ridiculous when the mayor insists that Tom needs to commit a murder. They haven't had a single murder in over 200 years, and they're worried they're not being earthly enough.
It doesn't make any sense.
The pressure to conform to external standards, even when those standards are nonsensical or harmful, is a recurring theme in this story.
Absolutely.
It's a critique of blind obedience to authority and the dangers of groupthink.
And just when you think it can't get any crazier, an inspector arrives from Earth to assess the colony's progress in becoming more earthly.
The inspector's arrival brings the satire to a head. He's a representative of the very system that's imposing these absurd rules. And he's completely oblivious to the inherent goodness and peaceful nature of the New Delaware society.
It's unbelievable.
He's more concerned with ticking boxes and following protocol than actually understanding the people he's supposed to be evaluating.
And the story's climax takes a darkly humorous turn when Tom, armed with a weapon he acquired through his skulking, confronts the inspector and is ordered to kill him.
But Tom can't bring himself to do it. Despite being appointed as the criminal and pressured to conform to earthly standards, his own moral compass prevails. He chooses compassion over violence, rejecting the absurdity of the situation he's been thrust into.
It's a powerful moment of individual defiance against a system that's lost its way. And it highlights the importance of critical thinking, questioning authority, and following one's own conscience, even when faced with pressure to conform.
And the ending, while bittersweet, he's also hopeful. The inspector and his entourage leave, disillusioned by the colony's lack of progress in embracing earthly ways.
And the people of New Delaware are left to rebuild their society, hopefully learning from their encounter with the absurdity of earthly norms and reaffirming their own values of peace, cooperation, and shared prosperity.
It's a reminder that sometimes rejecting the norm and forging your own path is the most courageous and meaningful choice you can make.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, from societal control and technological anxieties to the complexities of human nature and the enduring power of the individual conscience.
It's a lot to think about.
It is.
For sure.
I hope you've enjoyed this journey through time.
I know I have.
Exploring the anxieties, hopes, and enduring human qualities reflected in these stories from another era.
It's amazing how these stories written decades ago still resonate with us today.
Yeah.
They offer valuable insights into the human condition and the challenges we face as individuals and as a society.
Before we wrap up our deep dive, let's take a moment to reflect on what we've learned.
Okay.
What stands out to you from these stories? What themes or ideas are most striking in light of our current reality?
We'll be back shortly for the final part of this episode.
Okay.
To delve further into the lasting impact of these stories and to leave you with some final, thought-provoking questions to consider. Welcome back for the final part of our deep dive. It's been fascinating to see how these stories, despite their age, hold up a mirror to our own time.
What strikes me is their enduring relevance.
Yeah.
Those anxieties about technology, the yearning for freedom.
Right.
Those are timeless human struggles that resonate just as strongly today as they did back then.
Exactly. It's like they tapped into something fundamental about what it means to be human in a world that's constantly changing.
Right.
But before we get too existential,
okay,
I'm curious, what do you think makes these stories so impactful, even decades after they were written?
Well, for one thing, they don't shy away from complexity. Take The Wall Around the World, for example.
Right.
It'd be easy to present a simple good versus evil narrative with Porgy as the hero and Mr. Wickens as the villain.
Yeah.
But the story goes deeper than that.
Yep.
It acknowledges the potential dangers of uncontrolled power, even while championing the human spirit's drive to explore and understand.
Right. And it leaves you with those lingering questions about knowledge and responsibility.
Right.
Who gets to decide what we know?
Right.
What are the limits of individual freedom?
Right.
Especially when it comes to potentially dangerous discoveries. It's like those questions are even more relevant today.
Yeah.
In our age of information overload and rapidly advancing technology.
Absolutely. And then there's Skulking Permit, which uses satire to critique conformity and the absurdity of blindly following rules without understanding their purpose.
It's a story that could easily felt dated, but its themes of bureaucratic overreach and the pressure to conform feels strangely familiar in our modern world.
Very much so.
I know, right? It's like the author was anticipating our current obsession with metrics and quantifying everything, even things that can't be easily measured.
Right.
The inspector's insistence on measurable crime almost feels like a commentary on our reliance on data and statistics, even when they don't capture the full picture of human experience.
And what's so brilliant about the story is that it uses humor to make its point.
Yeah.
We laugh at the absurdity of the situation, but there's a deeper message there about the importance of critical thinking, of questioning authority, and of staying true to our own values, even when they clash with societal expectations.
It's like the story's giving us permission to question the status quo, to challenge the norms that we might have taken for granted.
Exactly.
And that's such a powerful message, especially for young people who are still figuring out their place in the world.
Exactly. And I think that's one of the enduring qualities of good science fiction. It encourages us to imagine different possibilities, to challenge assumptions, and to consider the ethical implications of our choices, both as individuals and as a society.
So if we were to distill some key takeaways from our deep dive,
what
would you say are the most important lessons these stories offer for our modern world?
Well, first and foremost, I think they remind us that progress isn't always a straightforward path towards a better future. There are potential pitfalls, unintended consequences, and ethical dilemmas that we need to be mindful of. Satan's Shrine and Wamba's Revenge both highlight the dangers of unchecked ambition and the need for responsible stewardship of powerful technologies.
It's like they're saying innovation is great, but we need to be thoughtful about the direction it's taking us and who's benefiting from it.
Exactly.
And we also need to be aware of the potential for misuse, whether it's a government wielding technology for control or an individual seeking revenge.
Absolutely. And I think another important takeaway is the power of individual action. In these stories, we see ordinary people, a dentist, a young boy, a skeptical investigator, finding ways to resist oppression, challenge the status quo, and make a difference, even in the face of seemingly insurmountable obstacles.
Yeah, it's like those characters are reminding us that we're not just passive observers.
Right.
We have the agency to shape our own destinies and to influence the direction of our society, even in small ways.
And finally, I think these stories offer a sense of hope.
Okay.
A belief in the human spirit's resilience and capacity for good. Even in the darkest of times, we see characters exhibiting courage, compassion, and a willingness to fight for what they believe in.
It's a reminder that even amidst uncertainty and challenge, there's always the potential for positive change.
Beautifully put.
And as we conclude our deep dive, I'd like to leave our listeners with one final thought. If these stories from the past can offer such potent insights into our present, what stories are we telling ourselves today that might shape the future? What narratives are we creating through our actions, our choices, and our beliefs?
It's a question worth pondering. Because ultimately, the future isn't predetermined. It's something we actively create together through the stories we choose to tell and the actions we choose to take.
Thanks for joining us on this journey through classic science fiction. We hope these stories have sparked your imagination and inspired you to think critically about the world we're creating.
Absolutely.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep telling your own stories.